Uh. What leapt on the paper was a round head, 3 pairs of thin beards, most of the body filled with blue, and a small bell tied around the neck. It looked similar to a cat, but if you look closely, it doesn't look like a cat without ears. Lorna glanced over. This style of painting was completely different from the previously released and new comics, with a little fresh style. Garly is a little confused, as this cat crippled, but it looks so cute. Doraemon, come and help me. The picture on the second page shows a flat-looking boy with glasses running to the house with tears and shouting. Doraemon. Lorna muttered, this name is so strange, how did you get it? Who is it called? Then the picture below appeared, and the creature that looked like a cat and was not a cat just spoke. Lorna immediately realized that it was Doraemon. By the way, Shu Mo seemed to be talking about drawing a Doraemon, which means that Doraemon is actually a machine. Then Giali and Lorna looked down. It turned out that the little boy was Nobita. He was always worried about the exams but ran home to let Doraemon make some tricks. Seeing that, Lorna started to speculate in the future whether this mechanical cat would help Nobita to cheat with high technology. The following is the introduction of Doraemon, from the invention of Nobita's great-great-grandson in the 22nd century, who used the time machine to send the Doraemon to help his grandfather Nobita. So in the background of the comics, Doraemon embraces high tech for more than a century. Seeing this, Lorna has some expectations for the next plot. What is the technology that is a century ahead of it? What about the future world? On the contrary, Gali curled her lips. What could happen after more than a century? Can you become a god? As the most advanced family in the universe, Gale has a high degree of arrogance. He believes that the development level of the Earth would not be able to fly out of the galaxy in the 22nd century. Not to mention the gods. There is a mere robot cat, and Gary is a little lacking in interest, but she still keeps watching. After all, this is a comic to be drawn in the future. But the more I looked at my eyes, the more I was about to fly out. A trace of cold sweat emerged from my forehead. I wanted to snarl at Shu Mo. What kind of high-tech? I saw Doraemon's hesitant face and finally took out a piece of bread from his pocket when Nobita cried and made troubles and hanged himself. Memory bread. Nobita, since you begged me like that, you have to do so. This is the bread of memory. Just press the bread on the book, and after the word of the book is printed on the bread, you will eat it, so that you will remember the text. Doraemon's round hands held up the bread and explained the purpose. Hearing the words, Dashang took the book with excitement, pressed bread on it and ate it hurriedly. A paragraph of text appeared in his mind, and he easily memorized the text backwards. Hearing the words, Dashang took the book with excitement, pressed bread on it and ate it hurriedly. A paragraph of text appeared in his mind, and he easily memorized the text backwards. It's amazing. If I had this bread, I wouldn't have to sneak into the library when Tenten was a kid, and I was beaten by an old wicked woman. Lorna remembered that the black household couldn't even go to school, and she would often sneak into the library to read books in order to live in the future. She was envious. It would be nice to have such a Doraemon. Unlike Lorna, Gali was dumbfounded. You are not high-tech, it is black technology. Black technology, it is impossible to have this kind of bread. Giali had never heard of memorizing words after eating a piece of bread in universe, and shouted out of righteousness. Shu Mo was amused. The black technology all over the Marvel universe actually said that others are black technology, and he couldn't help but laughed. Shit. Although he laughed, Shu Mo knew that this was black technology, which was blacker than most of Marvel's technology. The black is desperate. From the comics, the props that Doraemon took out of his pocket have no logic at all. For example, this memory bread. How does a piece of bread have something to do with the text? There is no causal connection between the front and the back. Unreasonable technology. Even if Marvel technology is black, it cannot escape the laws of physics. His black comes from some peculiar materials. Composed of these materials, it becomes black technology. But the principle of the biggest concept of these black technologies is clear, and there are traces to be found, such as vibrating gold and Edmond alloy. The material is sturdy, so the shield is also sturdy. Very simple reasoning. However, Doraemon still has some props that comply with technology, such as any door, which is actually a connecting device between two spaces, using warp space to realize the connection of space. Such similar props still exist in Marvel. The most obvious is the universe Rubik's Cube, which is the space gem. Closer to home, Shu Mo was too lazy to respond and just flipped through Byakugan, and the comics continued. Gali's cheeks slammed, and she realized that she was thinking too much. After all, it was only a comic, it was a fantasy and couldn't be taken seriously. After Shu Mo finished painting this sentence, he asked Giali, "Do you not paint?" Giali did not refuse. The characters in it were so interesting, and the low demands on the painter were just what she wanted. "I draw. Nah. Let's make a Doraemon and make it out, okay? I will send you a real one later." Boast. Uh. Giali was waving the paintbrush and rubbing against the white paper, and the story of Fat Blue gradually unfolded under the pen. Shu Mo stood behind Jia Li, looking down and watching the sketch. Jia Li has no foundation, so he paints more bluntly. This is also due to the warm and daily themes like Doraemon, and there are few movements in the painting. If it is replaced by a hot-blooded comic, even if it is copied, the reader will seem to feel uncomfortable. Doo-doo. Shu Mo picked up the phone and glanced at it. It was Uncle Andy. Then he walked out of the study and left Giali and Lorna alone. Shu Mo, the manuscript will be delivered tomorrow. The day after tomorrow will be Monday, the day when the third juvenile Jump will be released, Andy on the other end of the phone said anxiously. I didn't mean to open a new magazine before. What is the situation now? Andy wanted to call and ask questions these days, but worried that Shu Mo would be disturbed. Now the days are approaching and he has to call. After all, new comics and new magazines have to be negotiated. Well, Uncle Andy, come and lie down. I'll talk to you about new comics and new magazines. Shu Mo said. After hanging up, he checked the sketches on the desk that had been read from the study and put them in the living room. Before long, Andy arrived. Andy hadn't even turned it over when he saw several piles of thick paintings placed separately and was surprised. Shu Mo, how many books are you going to open? 6 books. No, it should be said that they are 7 books. Shu Mo was playing Kaido. You're crazy. Don't die. Hearing this, Andy couldn't help raising his voice, leaning forward, worrying and caring. This is absolutely impossible. Your parents are gone. Now my uncle wants you to treat yourself well. Of course, how could I make myself exhausted? I said I have an assistant. Shu Mo looked back at the study room and revealed a crack in the door. He had expected, come out. Lorna and Giali came out of the study with awkward and polite smiles, and the two who wanted to eavesdrop had to say hello to Andy. Andy didn't expect that there were still 2 people hidden here, both of whom were girls, staring at Shu Mo with profound gaze. Shu Mo knew what he was thinking without even thinking about it. He said seriously, these 2 are new serial comics of this issue of Shonen Jump. Different from the previous ones, these 2 books are very long. Andy picked up a stack of sketches and flipped through them. He scanned them very quickly and exclaimed, this setting is really not easy, but it takes a long time to unfold it slowly. Of course, both books are estimated to have nearly 700 words, which is very long, so this is a slow comic. Shu Mo explained. Of course, both books are estimated to have nearly 700 words, which is very long, so this is a slow comic. Shu Mo explained. What, 700 words? Andy's face changed drastically, exclaimed. Except for the government-published Captain America, there is no more comic book than this. Shu Mo didn't change his face, shrugged, and said calmly, I have it now, and there will be more than it in the future. I really can't understand you. Is such a long comic unpopular in the market, so sure? Andy knows that the current market is fast-paced and hot-blooded. Shu Mo's first 3 comics caught this point at the beginning, making reading a lot of fun. And these 2? To be honest, Andy is really not very optimistic. Although the setting is good, I am afraid that it will be dragged to death by the long page. Shu Mo had long expected Andy to say that. The current comic market is influenced by him. Most comic artists will not be able to jump out of the pit of heroic themes for a while, but it is a good player to follow the trend and set it up. Now the hottest is Captain One Punch, which completely puts Saitama on his hair and turns into Steve's big fight against Hydra, and the popularity was quite high at the time. Wait and see. I have never lost my confidence. Shu Mo waved his hand and shook the other 2 stacks of paintings. Andy only judged by naked eyes that there was a big difference between the weight and the previous ones. Now let's talk about the new magazine, which is also on sale with Shonen Jump, the weekly. What is it called? Friends Mank. Zian Mank is the first full-color weekly magazine of original comics in China in the past life. It is praised as China's Jump by authors, readers and people from all walks of life. Due to the national conditions and social atmosphere of the 2 countries, the issuance volume cannot be compared at all, and it is more comprehensive than the Jump scope. Jump focuses on hard work, friendship, and victory, which signifies that it is full of passionate blood, while the Friend Mank promotes sharp illusion and cuteness. It can be seen literally that it is omnipotent. Most categories can contribute. So the comics placed here are very different from Jump. This is the draft of this issue of Zian Mank. Andy picked up 2 drawings, one with a blue cat on the title page, and the other with a sudden change of style and becoming realistic. It was a strong man wearing glasses and raising his gun. From the background, you can see some Iron Men surrounded. Come up. It seems that you were really prepared. Andy couldn't help but smile after the flip. Someone bought these 2 books with your current reputation. If you treat these 4 as the first release, I'm sure no one will read them at all. Now the market is too deformed, but Shu Mo has become a brand name with his epic work. Andre is a comic editor, and his comic company is also one of the best in the industry. Since the release of Shonen Jump, the company's magazine sales have been declining. He admits that the 3 comics of Jump are indeed rare comics, but he does not believe that there will be no collapse in the future. The authors of the 3 comics are all the same person, and they are the bosses of the company, so assistants will be necessary to assist them. At that time, there will be changes in style and the quality will definitely decline. At that time, Andre hired the Navy to attack Marvel Comics and pulled it down from above. Thinking of this, Andre, who was walking on the commercial street, had a smile on his face, and just at this moment, the front began to be noisy. The bookstore in front was crowded with many young people, and it seemed very lively. Why is it so lively? Andre squeezed in with a question. Could it be some popular comic? But I kept engraving, my face was directly dull, almost all the readers were holding Boy Jump and flipping through it. 2 new comics have been published, and Marvel has also published a new magazine. The reader who bought it first yelled and folded back to the shelf again. Come on to a copy of Mild Friends. The people in the line rushed forward, and the noise was even worse. Andre looked ugly at the big posters on the walls on both sides of the bookstore. They were a fox with 9 tails and a hollow monster from the former Hungarian. On the left as Naruto, and on the right as Shinigami. The author's label is Shu Mo. He didn't expect to serialize 2 books on the basis of 3 books. This is completely beyond the reach of manpower. It must be painting on behalf of others, that's right. Andre didn't diverge in his heart, but secretly convinced. Sir, I think you've been stunned to jump. Are you going to buy it? An employee handed over the comic magazine, and there was another magazine at the same time. Andre didn't speak, he hesitated for a moment and bought it. He wanted to see the new comics and new magazines with his own eyes. Shu Mo is not a god, how can he guarantee a high level in every book? Opening the seal, Andre noticed that the names of the authors of the 3 comics began to change, and there was an extra name behind Shu Mo, who wanted to be the comic assistant. After flipping the Jump, Andre held Friends Mank with a blank expression on his face. Boss, we need to fight back. I have observed that Marvel comics are overwhelming. If we don't take action, I'm afraid. Couldn't any of the company's cartoonists surpass it? No, really? In this case, I will ask someone to deal with it. Really? In this case, I will ask someone to deal with it. After hanging up the phone, Andre looked at the magazine with a happy face, and said secretly, the boss is a gangster, Asian boy, you are done. Andre, who was secretly pleased, bumped into someone. He looked up, squinted his eyes and smiled and said, Edward, you are here too? Would you like to read some of our company's comic reviews? Edward laughed happily. If he might have agreed before, now. Sorry, even if I don't look at it, I know that your company still doesn't want to innovate. Okay, let's wait for you not to paint hero themes. Although the new classifications of ghoul and giant are successful in the market, more people are not prepared to follow the trend, and they are really afraid of white painting. Edward didn't give Andre much face, so he patted his shoulder and squeezed into the bookstore to start with the comic magazine. Andre turned to leave with a green face. Edward put 2 comic magazines on the table and turned on Twitter to prepare a once-a-week comic commentary. The story of One Punch Man in the new issue of the comics gradually unfolded. In the last episode, a weird organization, the House of Evolution, appeared. This issue is a detailed description of the dragon-level weird, Ashura one-horned fairy. The depiction of the battle between it and Janos is vivid under the super high painter, and Edward has not seen such a fight for a long time. Next, Saitama wants to expose his training methods, and Edward is more and more ticklish in his heart to know what kind of training has made Saitama today. Listen, no matter how hard Genos is, he has to grit his teeth and persevere. It took me 3 years to practice like this. Listening to Saitama speak solemnly in the comics, Edward's heart is mentioned in his throat. It has only been 3 years. This shows how cruel this training is. Edward swallowed, then turned to look, his eyes widened suddenly, and he read out in excitement. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a long-distance run of 10 kilometers. I'm bald and stronger. After reading, the louder and weaker Edward's high voice became, he was as dumbfounded as the Genos 3 in the comics. In the end, isn't it the supermarket sale day today? Saitama's roar, another weird person was seconded. Edward stroked his forehead with his hands, I can't take it seriously, as usual. However, some fans who are addicted to comics still experiment quietly. What if they really become stronger? Peter Spider-Man, who was squatting on the roof of a high-rise building, was eager to see this place and looked around. Although no one did it in broad daylight, it was still a bit embarrassing. Peter condensed his thoughts and prepared to practice secretly at night, still thinking that baldness can really bring power? Last time he was defeated by Green Goblin, so Peter, who desperately wanted power, fell into deep thought. Then I flipped up the following content, and a new character appeared in the 12th chapter. Under the depiction of the screen, the speed called Sonic seemed to be very fast. What disappointed him was that this period was over with one punch, and there was a long wait. This issue of Attack on Titan and Tokyo Ghoul made Peter look a little uncomfortable. The first part described what happened to Mikasa in childhood and let Mikasa know that the world is cruel. The latter one made him even more horrified. The newly appeared gourmet ghoul, Yu Shangxi, described in the picture that the restaurant opened by this person provides various types and different types of human cuisine. Shu Mo, it's a pervert, is it all drawn like this? Peter's ideas are extremely incompatible with the world shown in Ghoul. Only a few hastily flipped through to see the new comics. The colorful title page is in the Dark Night. A huge fox wreaks havoc in the village. The fox that made him notice has 9 tails and looks very vicious. There is a comment beside it, Peter murmured. In the old days, there was a demon fox that harmed the world, including 9 tails. When the fox waved, it caused a landslide and tsunami. There was a ninja who sacrificed his life to seal him up, and died on his own exhaustion. This ninja was called the 4th generation, Naruto. Naruto. Ninja? Is it Dongying Ninja? Peter murmured softly and turned to the next page. This is the beginning of the text, and the headline is simple and clear, Uzumaki Naruto. It should be the protagonist's name. At the beginning of the manga, someone appeared in front of an old grandfather and shouted, "Master Naruto, Naruto is playing a prank again." He actually painted on the Naruto stone statues of the past. This old man should be Hokage, he sighed, that kid is making trouble again? Peter's interest was immediately raised. The mischievous protagonist is rarely seen in the comics. After reading down, Naruto didn't know that he was wrong after being found out, but was rather proud. Others couldn't do it, but he did it, which shows that his very powerful inference made Peter chuckle. Peter doesn't hate such a protagonist. On the contrary, this kind of unassuming and energetic protagonist is more popular with Americans. Then Naruto was tied back by the teacher Iruka, in order to punish him for a surprise test, transformation technique. It's interesting, this transformation technique, ha ha ha. Naruto became not a teacher, but an excellent seduction technique, which made people squirt a nosebleed. Peter couldn't help laughing when he saw this. Afterwards, Iruka asked Naruto to clean up the graffiti on the Naruto statue, but Naruto said that he was alone. Just this sentence, Peter's heart was throbbing, is an orphan? And Naruto shouted with confidence in the Yilei ramen shop. I will become Hokage, recognized by the whole village, and be the strongest Hokage that surpasses all generations of Hokage. Dream? Dream? Peter raised his head and looked at the blue sky. His dream was to save more people, and he didn't seem to have any confidence in Naruto. It seems to be a positive comic book. Edward in the building in the distance nodded and took a sip of coffee. Then the plot suddenly changed. Naruto, who failed the clone technique exam, was swinging alone in the distance. There was a huge contrast with the excitement of his classmates who passed the exam as Jonin. At the same time, there were people talking from a distance. This kid failed again. It's better, it would be terrible if you can be a Jonin in this way. Edward frowned. This mischievous teenager not only had no father and no mother, but was isolated by the village. A heavy heart filled his heart, and Edward continued to watch. Under Mizuki's persuasion, Naruto stole the sealed book. In fact, Mizuki wanted to transfer the responsibility to Naruto himself and wanted to escape with the sealed book. Iruka chased after him, and Naruto was even more convinced that by learning the above ninjutsu, Naruto would graduate, and just then Mizuki revealed a shocking secret. Naruto, you are the demon fox. You killed Iruka's parents and you were the one who destroyed the village. The regulations that must not be revealed these 12 years ago. So it is. Edward suddenly realized that he would be isolated. Many people in the village had grudges with the demon fox. Naturally, as a sealed container, Naruto did not suffer from Byakugan. So in order to get the attention of others, he played a prank, and the seemingly indifferent heart was actually very painful. The story continues. Naruto collapsed after hearing it, and Mizuki even took the opportunity to throw a huge shuriken to kill him, but at this moment Iruka flew in front of Naruto. At this time Edward also saw the role of transformation technique in the battle. It was so ingenious. I am afraid there are more ninjutsu that hasn't been shown. He couldn't help admiring the imagination of the author Shu Mo. In the manga, Iruka is embarrassed and forced by Mizuki under a tree, behind which is hiding Naruto. Iruka, you are too stupid. If you learn the above ninjutsu with that monster nature kid, you will do all the bad things. No, Naruto focused and worked hard. Although he was a little bit naughty, he is still Konoha's Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka yelled solemnly, denying Mizuki. And Naruto couldn't help crying in the back, tears streaming down his face, when he saw Edward's eyes, who were usually stubborn, started to moist. It is always true feelings that move people. I think I am still affected after reading thousands of comics. Edward wiped the corners of his eyes and sighed from the bottom of his heart. At the end of this sentence, Mizuki was about to kill Iruka, but was defeated by angry Naruto with multiple shadow clones. Iruka saw Naruto wearing his forehead protector. It's over? There are 60 pages of this sentence, only one sentence. Edward saw that Iruka took Naruto to eat ramen in the end, and flipped over another new manga. Then I opened the document on the computer, and the keyboard crackled. Every time I saw a good comic, I wrote the comic comment first, put it aside, and then watched other comics, so as not to affect my subsequent perception with emotion. This is his habit for many years. There is no doubt that this is a moving and laughable comic, Edward can conclude from the first chapter. Xavier Talented Youth School, this setting is interesting. After Professor Charles finished teaching, he alone picked up the 2 comic magazines that Chin had just bought. One of the comics made him shine. Kurosaki is a high school student, and he likes to fight nosy teenagers. In fact, he has been able to see his soul since he was a child. On this day, he ran into a girl who called herself Shinigami, from Soul Society, to Karakura Town, Rukia Kuchiki, who came to Karakura Town to exterminate evil spirits. When the two met, there was an advanced spell named Kido that only Shinigami could use. Then Rukia used lame paintings to describe the emptiness in the hole, Shinigami's duty. It was at this time that the imaginary appeared, and Charles looked at it. It was the same as Kurosaki in the comics. At first, he thought it was a human appearance, but he did not expect it to be a monster. Rukia fell into a bitter battle. In order to protect his family, the Kurosaki family let Rukia stab himself and became Shinigami resolutely, swinging a big knife and hacking to death. At the end, this juvenile jump ended. Professor Charles closed the magazine and thought to himself. Shinigami now seems not as moving as Naruto, nor is it as humanistic as Ghoul and Giant, but very similar to One Punch. It's not a one-shot spike, but it's full of wild and uninhibited things from start to finish, and the soul setting inside is still eye-catching. Charles always feels that the spiritual heart comes from the soul, and this cartoon tells the story of the soul which inspires him a little bit. After thinking about it for a while, Charles flipped up Friends Mank, and what came into view was a white and blue cat. This is very educational. When I saw that Nobita did not show up on the exam, he went to Shizuka to show off his super memory first. Because of eating too much, he didn't remember anything with diarrhea. The black technology in the animal biscuit and spy wars that followed was not what Charles thought, but the meaning behind it. There is no passion, no attention to the nature of the world, only happiness and the educational principles behind the story. This is a comic that can accompany countless people through their childhood. Charles defined from this, his mind moved in the heart of the fluctuating call, Chin. Professor. What's the matter? At this moment, Chin Jung was flipping through the comic magazine, and bought a copy when he bought it for the professor, feeling the words of the professor's heart in his mind. Professor. What's the matter? At this moment, Chin Jung was flipping through the comic magazine, and bought a copy when he bought it for the professor, feeling the words of the professor's heart in his mind. I have time to buy 10 more copies of Milkmank. 10 books? Why is this? I think kids need it, especially kids like Jenny. You can read the manga called Doraemon. Jenny is the youngest girl in school, only 8 years old. Okay, professor. After Chin cut off the bridge of mind, he began to read. Clatter. Charles knocked on the table lightly, read the 3 episodes of Terminator, shook his head, and said depressed. How do you feel that there is nothing to watch? Shu Mo drew so many comic books with unique points of view, but this Ben looks very ordinary. It describes a future world. The world is already controlled by robots. The robot wants to completely occupy the world and drive mankind to an extinction, but it encounters Connor, the human elite who resists stubbornly. As a result, the Terminator robot T-800 was ordered to return to 1984 to kill Connor's mother Sarah with the purpose of destroying Connor's birth. This time-traveling setting is not uncommon in Charles's opinion. Many heroic comics are involved, so it seems that this comic is a little unremarkable. Charles was a little confused, it was too ordinary. And Shu Mo, who was far away in Hell's Kitchen, would have laughed if he knew Charles's thoughts. The Terminator is a famous science fiction film series in the United States in the past. When the famous film magazine, Film Weekly, selected the most collectible film in the 20th century, this film ranked first with the highest number of votes. This is inseparable from the strong American style of individual heroism and excellent film balance and perfect special effects. The above are all film achievements. Of course, its silent comics are not very interesting. Special attention is that Marvel Universe is now in 2008, and science fiction elements are flooding everywhere. Naturally, it seemed unremarkable. Shu Mo did not publish this comic to earn fan value at all, but to extract Skynet from it. Now he is burning incense and worshipping Xeno, ready to start a new round of lottery. Late at night, Shu Mo, why have you been in the bathroom for so long? Jiali knocked on the door and muttered. Shu Mo rubbed his hands vigorously in the sink, feeling out of breath. Kaido. What can I do? Crunch. Shu Mo wiped his hand towel and walked into the bedroom, making Garly's cheeks bulge. It felt a little weird. Could it be that he just crawled out of the pit? Shu Mo, who was secretly guessed by Jiali, was sitting in a chair with a squeeze, and the system interface popped up in front of him. The fan value indicated above happened to be more than 2 million. I used 1.6 million midway last week, and it has been saved until today. Shu Mo was a little nervous. This time he tried a $1 million lottery, but he didn't know what would happen. System. Adjust specifications, 1 million at a time, 500,000 at a time, 300,000 at a time, and 100,000 at a time. Adjusted. Is it a lottery? Start. The first is the second 100,000. Shu Mo will first see what he can draw now. Congratulations, host, get Nobita's glasses. A pair of glasses appeared in the air out of thin air, and then was thrown into the trash can. Congratulations, host, got the uniform of the investigating corps. A set of clothes floating in the air, a light brown jacket, and a light green cloak with a shield and overlapping wings. Shu Mo didn't throw it away but put it on the table, and gave it to Jiali to dress and play by herself, because he suddenly found that Jiali liked Cuz. The other day he played with Mindy in three-dimensional maneuvering around. The 200,000 draws are all items, and the value is very cheap. Shu Mo estimates that the 100,000 draws are out of stock. Don't think about it next time. This time it is a 300,000 lottery. Congratulations to host, get Jinmu Research Fragment X2, he pack Fragment X1. A group of dull meatballs and 2 pieces of puzzle pieces appeared, and Shu Mo dragged them to the warehouse without saying a word. Next is the 500,000 draw. Shu Mo whispered secretly, the usual $500,000 lottery can be said to be true, and it is not a loss. Congratulations to the host for acquiring Ashura Unicorn Set Skills, Strange Power Shard X1, Sensitive Shard X1, Ashura Mode Shard X2. 2 passive skill fragments and 1 active skill fragment. Strange power fragments and sensitive fragments turned into red and green rays respectively and poured into Shu Mo's body, making people comfortable as if soaking in a hot spring, and he took a deep breath. Strange power fragments and sensitive fragments turned into red and green rays respectively and poured into Shu Mo's body, making people comfortable as if soaking in a hot spring, and he took a deep breath. The strange power level is now 2 levels, all of which are dragon level disaster fragments, while the agility is at level 3, and one of the fragments is only a ghost level disaster. The crimson light emitted by the remaining fragments of Ashura mode made Shu Mo a little uncomfortable with the unusually coquettish appearance. Ashura mode fragments. Great anger brings terrifying strength. The more fragments, the stronger the strength, but at the same time it will lose your mind. Shu Mo touched his chin. Isn't this the violent thing he used to say in previous lives? Since it is an active skill, install it first without losing money. The fascinating light turned into a meteor and entered Shu Mo's mind. A new icon appeared in the system skill panel, and it was an invisible monster roaring. But the more he looked at it, the more familiar he became, and he couldn't help asking. System. Why are these patterns a bit familiar? Host. These patterns come from your own memory, these are just shapes. The rage pattern comes from the summoner's skill Rage of the Glory of the King. I would rather not think about it. Shu Mo was a little depressed. He didn't expect the system to collect materials directly on the spot. Then he immediately became energetic, and said excitedly and nervously, Start, the lottery is 1 million. 1 million times is his biggest consumption since the lottery. This time he took half of the total fan value just to see what it cost so much. When there are only more than 60,000 fan points left in the blink of an eye, the system dial starts to spin quickly. The awards of the turntable have been dark, and can only wait for the system to report. Congratulations to host, for obtaining Artificial Intelligence Skynet Shard X2, Multiple Shadow Clone Shard X5, Konoha Forehead Protector 1, Geno's Power Source X2, Jinmu Research Shard X2, Saitama Shard X1, Rukia Skill Shunpo Shard X1, 1 of Bakudo, plug. Several rays of light flashed abruptly, all lined up one by one. Hiss. Shu Mo took a deep breath, his breathing increased slightly, the violent beating sound of his heart was directly transmitted into his ears, and his limbs were a little numb. Except for the useless forehead protector, this is really a great gift. A fan value of 1 million points is too affordable. After a moment of crazy excitement and joy, Shu-mo calmed down a little under the urging of the system. The synthesizable item is detected, and it is being synthesized automatically. I saw a dim battery flew out from the warehouse, and 2 batteries flew out of several rays of light, and then the 3 batteries collided together. In the dazzling brilliance, a gleaming blue energy sphere completely different from the battery, with a light flesh-colored shell connected to a few wires. Genos Power Source. It is the core energy device of Genos. The super energy can release an unparalleled destruction cannon. It can be upgraded through Power Source Fragment, and has a limit. I also thought that there was a burning power source in the warehouse. Shu-mo raised his hand slightly to hold the azure energy ball, a slight cooling sensation flowing in the palm of his hand. There was no sensation of hotness. Genos is a remodeled person, except that the brain is an original product, everything else is library. At this time, the light of the prize has disappeared, but the power source is not the heart of Genos. It is only used as an output device, and it can even carry multiple, which is usually mounted on the arm and used with the incinerator. This is Shu-mo's understanding of power sources, and it will be a big change. Before the fragments of the power source, the battery burned down the thin tube, but it seemed that he couldn't use it now. The power source and the incinerator must be carried on the robot or the modified man. Shu-mo did not have an Iron Man suit. Finally, he put it in the warehouse. The Terminator should be able to carry the power source and the incinerator. Lost. Everything is shown in front of Shu-mo's eyes. The Skynet fragments look like discs, all black. But this is in fragmented form. After the full version, perhaps Jin Muyan and Saitama's fragments are dragged into the warehouse. Shu-mo puts his sight on the Rukia skill Shunpo fragment. Synthesis becomes a sphere. Shu-mo drew Terminator to extract Skynet, along with the robots of the Terminator series, secretly saying, besides or farther away. Hint. Although the Shunpo fragment is an active skill, it can stack with the same type of skill. He still remembered that there was a liquid metal Terminator that could simulate at will, which was very useful. It seems that Skynet in this sentence are prepared for Shinigami's 3 general combat methods. Kido, white hits, and Shunpo can all be superimposed. If you put them farther, they should not be limited to dead Shunpo fragments. Fast instant transmission of the body. Footwork. The ability to move to the opponent at a speed that the opponent can't see is not even limited to the Shinigami comics. Shu-mo remembers that there is also the body flicker technique in Naruto, all of which are extremely high-speed moving techniques. Shunpo fragmented into blue light. The mechanical sound of the system came into his mind, which made Shu-mo think a little. Only the word easy can describe it. Shu-mo suddenly disappeared suddenly, and the whole person flashed around in the room, which looked like instant transmission to the naked eye of ordinary people. 3-level gods can even include virtual ringing. High mobility has exceeded the limit of human beings, Shu-mo. His physical fitness can now be said to be non-human beings. After trying a few times, Shu-mo stopped and clicked on one of the Bakudo. The stuffed message. The flow poured into Shu-mo's body, covering Bakudo, a kind of Kido used by Shinigami in the manga. Shinigami, unlike Hado, which focuses on destruction, it is for the purpose of restraining and imprisoning. After trying a few times, Shu-mo stopped and clicked on one of the Bakudo. The stuffed message. The flow poured into Shu-mo's body, covering Bakudo, a kind of Kido used by Shinigami in the manga. Shinigami, unlike Hado, which focuses on destruction, it is for the purpose of restraining and imprisoning. One of the Bakudo pulled out. Plug, not a fragment, it is already a perfect agility plus a special footwork. The whole skill, the function is to block the action of the target's hands and feet. Shu-mo is directly equipped with it. This is a small skill that can be supported by the will, spirit, and soul surpassing ordinary people. Then, Shu-mo looked at the last one of the spree. Make the 10th level not full item, multiple shadow clone fragments x5, and a forehead protector has been ignored by him. Multiple shadow clone technique fragments. The more fragments, the more shadow clones will be summoned, and what each clone has experienced before disappearing will be conveyed to the ontology clone. Thought of here, there is no upper limit and physical effort is required. The last message made Shu-mo stunned. Ninjutsu generally consumes chakra, but he doesn't, but here is changed to physical strength. That is 60 pages, which is equivalent to 3 chapters of a normal manga. It's level, but this physical strength is not unlimited, it will affect the number of clones. But for Shu-mo, all the exhaustion of the clone will be superimposed. Too many summons is not good. Several of the previous 2 comics Shu-mo observed that as long as the new comics are released, the lottery of the week is very likely to come to Shu-mo. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, and he had expected the shadow splitting technique to be drawn. In this issue of the manga magazine, Naruto and Shinigami are only one story, and everyone means saving a period of time, and the progress of the manga will be much faster. After the removal at the same time, the memory is that his comics are all 4 chapters, with an average of 80 pages, but the 2 books are 60 pages. It is not that the second chapter is not painted, in fact, he did it on purpose. Because the first chapter of Naruto is still important, the highlight of ninjutsu in this chapter is the multiple shadow clone techniques. With just one sentence, it is very likely to be drawn from the new manga. Clone technique means much more to his cartoonist. A person's ability is really limited. If there is one more, he doesn't need to be trapped in cartoons all day long. Copying comics is tiring and boring, especially if you have read it. Shared, Shu-mo will not have a little understanding of his comics. Fortunately, the painting room is relatively spacious, with 3 tables, 1 for each person, and Gale and Lorna are closer together. The projection screens of the current system are hardened by Shu-mo and feel that they are intentionally separated, and traces are mapped step by step according to the established plan. Gali vividly took pictures of the gourd on the drawing, with a little bit of art. Galibian and Doraemon would not stand it. Now she doesn't watch TV, and she is gradually indulging in the storyline of the comics, acting as a messenger. Lorna. Think. Sister Lorna, look at this Nobita, really stupid, I really want a Doraemon. Click. Turning over Byakugan sitting upright, Lorna smiled happily, while brushing in her hand, taking out potato chips from time to time and chewing. Shu-mo walked in. Don't let the rubbing sound of Gaily ever be heard. As soon as Lorna and he came in, he rubbed Gaily's head and said in a deep voice. After speaking, they sat on the desk and started to draw. Giali heard that she had to finish reading the manga before she started drawing, but she did not respond to a lot of drumbeats. Lorna covered her mouth and smiled. The pen and paper close painter is working hard, keep working hard. Jia Li sounded like a lark sing, and the two were different from Shu-mo. Shu-mo chose a comic and was writing Lorna at this moment. Suddenly, she had read it in her heart, and the two of them understood the story in the process of drawing and were very focused. Lorna, is she too fascinated? So she didn't hear the sound? Shu-mo's voice came from before her. Lorna scratched her head in embarrassment and gave a shy hum. After a while, Shu-mo's voice came from the side, and Lorna brushed it. Something is wrong. Shu-mo shouldn't be on the back table. Why did he get in front of her all at once? It looks too fat. Who said that? He looks like this. Shu-mo walked backwards, and Lorna, who had him, didn't want to bury her head in the drawing. Duo shook, and there was an awkward sound coming from behind. She couldn't help thinking about it, feeling in her magnetic field. Oh, Gali, is your Doraemon belly out of marks? This. Still 2 brushes. As soon as Lorna looked up, she saw Shu-mo in Gia's. Gali was a little guilty, and said in denial. At this time Lorna Shu-mo is here, what's going on behind that? Is it the same as she manipulates the metal behind the painting to move? Judging from the thickness and length, it should be a brush. Turning behind, he was stunned. A few minutes ago. Living room Lee's side smiled, her heart palpitated, and a paintbrush was moving behind her, but she put a sip on the small table, carefully squinted her eyes and watched the news in a leisurely manner. Lee's side smiled, her heart palpitated, and a paintbrush was moving behind her, but she put a sip on the small table, carefully squinted her eyes and watched the news in a leisurely manner. The pens inside draw at the same time? Lorna looked suspiciously. Welcome to the American Evening News. The following is today's report. This Shu-mo was lying on the sofa, picking up a cup of coffee from Marvel Comics' Shown Jump, and the new magazine, Mindmank, as the host was still doing his duty and preaching plainly. Much. Experts say this is a bottoming out effect brought about by the revival of the comics industry. Comic fans caught people's birthday from despair. There was another comic rush in the morning in New York City. One of the comics was suspected to involve mutants, and the publishing company. The attitude is not clear and there is no explanation so far. News. The reason for the increasing number of people in the long line, and then to other news. Shu-mo didn't feel any contempt, because it was normal. Straw. The share of its related industry in the American entertainment market is really unsightly. A big-name cartoonist in the industry is not even as good as an 18th line singer. I just mentioned a little bit about an adult on New York Street. Few people know about Juvenile Jump. The comics only have an audience among young people, but it's less than 20%. The comics are well-known. Captain America, after the looting, they did not intend to learn about other comics. It's like seeing Uncle Andy for the first time when he went out and asked about an increasingly thin market, if Shu-mo didn't come here or the Cartoonist system was not activated. I'm afraid the comic industry will disappear in the future, only. The world gives people several classic comics, the reason is that Manmi has given up on comics. The children of the future are even less interested in stepping in. They feel that after watching The Captain of the Five Nations, they have read all the American comics. The comics industry does not enter the entertainment industry, and it is even more contemptuous in the entire big market. Even the capital is too lazy to keep tens of thousands of copies to enter the market. How much attention can it have? Even at noon this afternoon, Edward, who is now the Marvel Queen's commentator on Twitter, was pushed to the top of the fanfare that was on the new page, but tonight it fell directly to 100. Come fast, go fast. There seems to be a lot of comic fans, and nearly 10 jumps can be sold every week. But compared to the entire United States is not worth mentioning. The number of comic fans is already at the limit, and new vitality must be injected. It can be said that it is a playful or somewhat advertising effect, but it is negligible. Shu Mo thought of a point that would attract people who haven't read comics or are not interested in it. As we all know, the comics industry in the previous life of Tokyo can be said to be spread across various industries. Even Tokyo is so hot that Koser has appeared in it. Shu Mo certainly doesn't shoot Tokyo so hot, but some of them are particularly profitable. One of the parties that can attract more teenagers to the pit is games. However, Naruto has just launched this game now. For those who have never read comics and do not want to read comics, anime is a choice for them to enter the pit, and another option is the game. Shu Mo, adapted from the comics, is currently very reluctant in terms of the resources in his hands. Game companies, game engines, etc., have nothing to do with Shu Mo. What Shu Mo remembers most clearly is Naruto. Ultimate Storm, exquisite graphics and smooth movements. The playability is very high. Large, the finished product is slow to take effect, time-consuming and wasteful. Shu Mo took a sip of coffee and fell into contemplation for a while. It was too early for what game suits the present shape, so I postponed it first. What's more, the development of large-scale games right now has low manufacturing costs, is not slow to update, and easy to use. Can it attract the attention of young people in a short period of time? Recently, new volunteers appeared at night in New York, and there were witnesses who paid for it. The investigator made him suspect that the murderer was a mutant. The original said he looked like a Spider-Man from a distance, but he could hear the sound of pulling wires and jets. In addition, this righteous policeman claimed to be a superkiller. When the police in Washington, D.C., found a mummy to the last piece of news, there was a bang in their minds. The whole body is stiff, the blood is scarce, and there are marks of being bitten on the neck. There were witnesses in Queens who saw someone use playing cards to kill cards. Card games, card duels. Repeated memories resurfaced in my mind, because playing cards exploded in childhood. At this time, the host on the TV reported the news one after another, and Shu Mo listened to the game played by his partner. Shu Mo suddenly remembered that this game is indeed easy to use and easy to understand. The more important thing is that there is no need to set up a game company. What he cares about is not mutants, but poker. He knew that Shu had to form a group, and the extended card sales are simply outrageous. Do whatever you want. Shu Mo took out his phone and called Andy. Comics can be played with anytime, anywhere, and a group needs to be formed around the area to get in touch with. Uncle Andy, it's me. I need you to help me form a new group. Andy hadn't fallen asleep yet. He was surprised when he heard the words. What group? Shinigami and Naruto have just launched. Every issue you have. There are many points in the serialization of the new Manmo Devils, and every time there is a bright future for what they do. In the fourth period of the Boy Jump, I will serialize the game type and will pay attention. You kid. Now online comic fans are arguing whether the ninja is strong or dead for sale. I'll draw 4 words and send them to you later, you will understand after reading them. I'll draw 4 words and send them to you later, you will understand after reading them. Well, D smiled. Shu Mo is really a comic genius he has seen. Shu Mo raised his brows and asked quickly. What? Hokage and Shinigami fight to draw. Pay attention to your body. Genius is always so bright, me? The brain seems to have caught something. Andy explained. What started fighting is that fans are arguing about who the characters in the comics are stronger, and they also give Saitama to the gods. Okay, I'm going to hang up. There are 0 million people, it seems a little bit small, but after entering, the worldview has not been expanded, but I really think about it. Fighting? Shinigame's Hokage? Why is this forgotten? The game model made on 4399 means anime template. What's wrong? Face the more well-known Shinigami vs. a horizontal board fighting flash game. In 2016, the number of hits exceeded 1 and it made me think of an idea. By the way, are there any employees in the company who can program software? Software programming is very helpful for the promotion of manga and animation. Especially now that the 2 comics have not been animated. The software? To make a small game, I will send you the requirements and the general appearance. After finishing it, put it on the official website, and re-optimize the official website. Is there a problem? Uncle Andy, your words. Shu Mo hung up the phone. Shu Mo is a little disgusted with the company's official website. The interface above is too simple. Marvel is the backbone of the industry at any rate, which is too shameful. Okay. There is also the animation of Most Metropolis. Do you want to do and push a few shadow clones, and see the lying position of Shu Mo's deity, Superman, as currently half of the animation, so watch it when you finish it. Click. Andy was a little embarrassed. In fact, he really didn't pay attention to the official website interface. How about it? Shu Mo happily said when he saw this. At this time, there was a lot of noise in the study, and Gale played a game with Lorna. Price ticket. Seek support. Stunned for a while. This is my new get skill. Clone technique. Laws. Raindrops kept falling from the sky. Jin Ping stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at everything in his line of sight. His face was cloudy and sunny. No one knew that the voice had just fallen, and there was a Shu. In the early morning of Jin Ping, there was no warm sun blowing over people's faces. On the contrary, the sky was dark clouds. Densely, Hualatu said timidly, "Boss, there has been no news from the police station. It seems that a larger department has intervened, and our people have been warned." With Lei's roar, his chief assassin's bullseye just died inexplicably. A confidant walked in, and was swept into the wall as if hit by a high-speed train and directly embedded in it. In other words, you can't find anything at all. Jin Bin flew like a probe and was destroyed, hoping that the police station was useless at all, and now he has been warned. This is almost a sudden slash with the cane, the man A. The place of the incident was in Hell's Kitchen, right under his nose, and no one even knew who the murderer was. The roadside gang, he actually didn't know what department was intervening, and he tried all his thoughts. The answers to money, contacts and threats were nothing more than FBI and sea spider webs waiting to jump in. He was not the shame of the underworld emperor, but he was right. His provocation. The key point is that as the largest black agent in the United States manages gang lockups, Jin doesn't even believe that someone is watching him. Now that the enemy is secret, he can only accept it passively. As if a spider's confidant didn't say a word, he swallowed blood into his stomach, and then made a little noise. This is a big joke. When is it organized? He was used to strong Jin and began to strain his nerves, and couldn't sleep well. He was beaten for no reason and was disabled on the spot. In fact, the only thing that can be assured is the bullseye. Toot. At this moment, Jin doesn't know who the other party is. Is it an individual? It will still be killed immediately. Hideojin didn't usually smile, but he was actually a capricious, cold-blooded and cruel emperor. His confidant seemed to be very troublesome. Jin Bin's tone changed, and he greeted him plainly, unlike before. "Oh, it turned out to be like this, no problem. I'm a small business. It's like this." Long phone rang, asking people to lift the confidant, and then I picked it up. I haven't contacted him for a long time. How come it is an ally of his, not a gang ally, but a business ally? The underworld empire takes black and white, and the rules of the underworld cannot penetrate. After Jin he hung up the phone. Wei, who walked to the table, abolished his hands and no longer picked up the paintbrush. Called as a protection fee in exchange for backing. In the eyes of these companies, it is useless to find the police in an accident as a backer for the gang, and the efficiency of the guarantee is high and none of them are found. The newspaper and painting company on the street pays an unremarkable share every year. The newspaper and painting company on the street pays an unremarkable share every year. Lift the glass table. Just around the building where Jin Bin was located, there were people who wandered from time to time. The overly exquisite acting made the gangsters stunned. In the low room in the alley, they knocked on the door regularly, and there was a crack in the door. Communicator. After confessing a few words, the man sitting in the chair and tapping his hand to communicate with the boss from time to time, suddenly changed slightly and left quickly. After a while, the numbness that came to one place after passing his sloppy route made the atmosphere of the room strange. After a while, Collison walked in and said straightforwardly. After passing by the pavilion, a face was indifferent. He straightened up, confronted the signal and walked in. There are 7 or 8 agents like him here. No one is speaking. The agents have brought serious treatment for many years, waiting for the plan to end or change. Nothing happened since I found some clues last time. Coulson didn't doubt it. It's the largest monitoring on the planet for such a long time and no suspicious person was found. Be strict. So I sent some people to watch to see if there were any signs of this incident. Jin did not guess wrong at all. He was stared at some discounts. Afterwards, military friend also directly collected the information of Hell's Kitchen, but did not expect to find out Jin Tong. After Collison finished speaking, he hurriedly left, and soon he walked to the bookstore on the way. He was about to buy Boy Jump, but Daredevil Matt, who was told by the clerk, was a little dazed and frowned. "Frank, come out." Respond to institutions as naturally as possible. Hand. Coulson quickly hid the comic magazine with his eyesight and hurried back to the headquarters on the bus. And in a law firm? Kill the man with the bullseye. Daredevil was a bit stunned, because he couldn't see it, so the only one at the time was, I must have no clue when looking at ordinary people. I have been sensitive in the past. I seem to have found something. The Punisher suddenly turned in from the window. What to share with the Punisher? He shook his head and said, this is impossible. Yes, if the other party started a company, it would be a great kid, and there are already witnesses. It would not be considered a witness. He can only throw the magazine in front of Daredevil from the perceived world line Punisher, and take a bottle of beer from the refrigerator to sip. This is a comic he drew, and you and I know about it. Looking for him. Matt's printing on the touch paper changes slightly to achieve touch reading. It's a pity that now he only tells what department he is thinking about. A dull voice resounded throughout the building, abnormal. Early in the morning, Shu Mo, who was dazed, was awakened by the roaring roar of Master Hedong, and the sleepy double here was about to close. The heart of the language was wide, and the cold sweat broke out. Boom. Without further ado, teleport back 2 steps to close the bathroom door. The bungalows on the building are well decorated, but the overall layout is a bit lacking. The bathroom is in each room. After Shu Mo calmed down her heartbeat a little, he coughed dryly. Lorna, this is not for the bridge hole. Intermittently, Lorna sits on the toilet naked in an indescribable place. Her face is pale and hysterical, if she doesn't know it. The content of the speech thought it was preaching. Although these 2 colors are all over the face. Upon hearing Shu Mo's polite nonsense, he shouted angrily. There is only one dead change building, and the 2nd floor is shared. Health. Outside the door, Shu Mo, who had some guilty conscience, ran out of his mind. That was Lorna's white legs, and after unable to scream, breathing was not smooth, and then the color of the beautiful red language clearly expressed, and Lorna the color of the hair when using superpower. Alas, the white is so conspicuous that you can't even see it. Attitude, still quibbling. Believe in the teacher. Regarding Lorna's accusation, Shu Mo was a little embarrassed by Kaido. Lorna, it's like this, didn't I draw it too late last night? I drove out the new 4 manga chapters, and didn't see it. Shu Mo originally subconsciously went to Kaido. There was an earthquake last night for no reason, and I didn't sleep well. After a pause, he said, actually, I didn't see anything. Really, you can't stand Lorna anymore. Not only is her face flushed, but even. What kind of teacher would be so perverted? From Dongying. I really do everything after hearing this. Shu Mo knew that he couldn't say anything clearly. He scratched his head depressed and moved quickly, and Ducky emphasized stiffly. Roll. It didn't take long for Lorna's heartbeat to calm down. At this moment, her ears stood up and she heard the footsteps from far and near, and her heart was beating wildly. She became angry and yelled frantically. Shu Mo, this dead pervert is back. What does he want to do? Don't want to use strong? Leave slowly and go to the bathroom downstairs. Unexpectedly, he is such a person. No matter how Lorna was thinking about it, if she said that she didn't lock the door because she had forgotten it before, Shu Mo came in with a misunderstanding. Do you think? Then it's really perverted now. Fortunately, it was Jia Li's voice coming in from outside the door. It's me, Sister Lorna. Damn it, I didn't hear it all, I was really seen? Jia Li said with an excited 8 trigrams, her ears on the door, and her head secretly. It turns out that humans. What a deliberate breath, but looking down, no. Lorna's extremely calm words came out, making Gaily stunned and a little confused. Lorna looked up at the ceiling innocently, muttered to her, oh. Pretending to be away from the well, she floated back, shaking her ears. Lorna inside used her abilities to punish this abnormal teacher for a long time, and instead she twitched her mouth a few times, which was a little bit hidden inside, but the angle was changed and it was really unobstructed. Glittering teeth should be directly into the air, pulled out the steel bars in the wall and crossed them, and finally hung on the balcony and exposed to the sun. It's over, it's really over. I don't know why she is not the first. She didn't think about anything at the time, she was completely in the mentality of a little girl. What's the matter? Just skin, this is not her character at all. She should reply quietly outside the door, as if reading her mind, Sister Lorna, do you have feelings for Shu Mo? 3 days and 3 nights like an arrow of Langley. But she stabbed Lorna's heart fiercely, her hair floated up, and the dark green gradually replaced the dyed black hair. She said furiously, gaily. At this moment downstairs, Jia Li was angry and slowly stopped at Shu Mo who was about to buy breakfast. When he looked back, he saw Jia Li's purple hair flashing by, and then the furious Lorna controlled the pots and pans, chased the past. The female of the face followed behind. Oh, Shu Mo couldn't help shivering. A helicopter rolls its head, and it suddenly emits a golden light. Such power as the top of a tall building. A blonde and curly young man walked down from above, and there was an Asian. Danny, don't be impulsive. According to last night's news, Hell's Kitchen launched a shallow earthquake. New York, Danny Lander is finally back. Danny said angrily, clenched his fist and waited for you to jump in. I know, Colleen. Danny was not emboldened by him. The woman behind heard the words and reminded, come down. Let's find some help first. The righteous police in Hell's Kitchen are a good choice. This way, it will be more effective to deal with the starting hands. Now New York has been laid to the sky. Colleen and Danny left the apron, one left the building directly, and the other entered the chairman's office on the top floor of the building. Shu Mo took 3 breakfasts and walked slowly on the streets of Hell's Kitchen. The closer to the residents, the fewer pedestrians. He put the bag down gently, patrolled around, smiled and said, come out, don't hide it. Call. A black blade axe was thrown from a corner, and the posture of rapid rotation was full of wind. Then Shu Mo raised his hand like lightning, and directly grasped the position of the handle at an extremely tricky angle. The gangster. Sneer. Shu Mo is also drunk. Since he traveled to the Marvel Universe, no supervillain has troubled him. I saw several young white men in gangster standard suits, with weapons in their hands, 8-gate, rushing over menacingly. But this time the gangsters are not like the style in Frank Mansion. There is no nonsense at all. Shu Mo doesn't know what to say because of its fierce look. Since you are here to die, then go to die. Shu Mo has a cold face, leaning back slightly, swinging his axe as if throwing a shot, and letting go for an instant. Boom. The air suddenly exploded, and a circular shockwave threw a dot and surged everywhere. The axe spun with extreme speed in the next second, cutting the air and making a sharp sound, completely turning into a disc and flying straight out like a cannonball, and instantly came to the front of the gang. Pouch. The blood was gushing, the human head flew up, and the expression on his face was still that fierce, which was completely beyond the brain's response. The axe went around in a circle in midair like a boomerang and was caught by Shu Mo. He smiled and shook the axe blade with traces of blood stained on it. Dead? Is this dead? Several gangsters were stunned, and before they could react, their heads were cut off as soon as they appeared on the stage, like ice water falling from their heads, cold and biting. He's only one person, let's go together. One of them was more courageous and quickly steadied his emotions and rushed up, while the others also reacted and were about to rush forward. There was another bang. The thug who called just now was hit directly in his stomach, and a stone dragged him backwards and flew out and plunged into the wall. The smashed gravel rolled down, and the blood fell from the pile of dust and rocks, flowing out. Another one died. Changed, mutant, he is a monster. The 3 thugs were broken and fled in panic. They were very clever and ran in 3 directions. Shadow clone technique. Shadow clone technique. Shu Mo shook his head when he saw it. He didn't need Ji in at all, so he called 3 clones to catch up with him. The next moment, with Superman's speed, he caught the person in just a few seconds, and directly beat him on the spot. The 3 thugs only thought they were chasing him. Under the severe pain, it was not that all the hard bones were all out in order to save their lives. In the end, the clone killed the 3 directly. Just cut your hands, is this a colleague? As the 2 shadow clones' puffs turned into white smoke and disappeared, the information Shu Mo received made him think a little. This group of thugs are from the Golden Underworld Empire, and the task is required to chop off the target's hands. This is a very strange task. Shu Mo can only be viewed from peer competition, which is not uncommon in the United States, just as Tony was not brought into the den of terrorists by his greedy uncle, and he has not come out yet. Interests are moving. The comics of Marvel Comics are now the hegemon of the comics market. It can be said that 70% of the profits are in the pocket, and other companies can only drink soup. And with the subsequent comics, 90% of the share can be embezzled, and the only thing that can be solved is the original and new type comics. Obviously, most comic companies are afraid of losing their money and dare not extend that foot, so some people are moved. Shu Mo said indifferently to the other clone, "Go and solve it completely." Yes. The clone responded and left the street. Boss Jinbin. This is a little bit of heart. A chubby white man flatly took out the check and put it on the table, while Edward on the side also smiled. Edward, Bane, rest assured, my people are gone. Jin Biao cheerfully smiled at the 2 sitting on the sofa, took it over calmly, and glanced at the smile on the face of the number above. Same as flowers. That's good, alas, business is difficult now, what kind of shit this kid drew can be so popular. The 3 people laughed and talked freely, and Bane was even more satirizing Shu Mo's cartoons, but the 3 of them knew how bad they were. How could they meet today? Yeah. It looks just right. A voice suddenly sounded from the shadows, and the three of them heard their reputation, and the cold black shadow came out as a young man. He is Shu Mo. Edward's face changed drastically, and he exclaimed. Then, the cane burst out and Bane saw it, terrified and accused. What? Boss Jin Bin. What's the matter with you? Ask why no one stopped you, Shu Mo can come here. Jin ignored Bane's question, and rushed forward, his sturdy body like a mountain overwhelmed him without knowing it. His cane has an endless stream of attacks that swells and crackles. He has no nonsense, smoke, etc. As long as there is a little noise, his subordinates will soon rush into the lair, which explains everything. Either they are all dead, or they are all clones. Of course, they will not be attacked by the electric current. The shadow clone will disappear as long as it is attacked, so it is just a sudden pan. Flash ability, can launch lasers, spread high voltage current through the poisonous road, and then clenched fists, aiming at the abdomen close at hand and swinging a fist. Boom. Jin Binquan suddenly exploded, the unstoppable body was instantly penetrated by the huge force, and the entire abdomen was recessed, only to feel the internal organs bursting wildly, and then the terrifying force. Edward opened his mouth, watching this horrible scene. Dull sound. The huge bodies were like inflated balloons. The two shuddered and slumped directly to the ground. The airwaves they saw with their own eyes pushed the broken pieces through the windows and blasted them out. Bane and Tay are the same as comics. Is Shu Mo still a human? At this time, layers of airwaves started to reach the scene, and the eyes burst out. The remaining plasma was blown and beaten on the wall. How is it possible? How is it possible? When he arrived at Jin and was beaten with a punch, the companion rushed to the door with Edward's hysterical roar, only to feel the pain in time, and his consciousness gradually blurred. Surging around, Bane kneeled. Shu Mo's clone flashed a kick and exploded Edward's head, turned to look at Bane, and wrote lightly, "You are the only one." The chaotic footsteps are from far to near, and it's terrifying that Bane's eyes are struggling. "I beg you, you can mention anything, and the company will give it to you." Bang. Boss. Jin and cried on the ground. At this time, there was a panic outside, and a heavy rush came up, but found that the bodyguard at the door directly hung the color, opened the door, and a bloody smell entered his nose. The desired color can directly become dim. The scene in front of him made his pupils shrink suddenly. Shu Mo's subordinates were stunned when they hurried to eat breakfast when they heard something movement, and then proceeded to eat. Get up. There is no response to Gale, who is sitting with him, but Min. The nervous Lorna looked a little surprised, always paying attention to Shu Mo's movements. Shu Mo, hurry up and let your young Dao clone sit on her chair and come out. When it's time to paint, Jia Li yelled with an air of expression on her face. New. Comics. Shu Mo flipped over this, puffed through. White smoke rose, 5 avatars appeared in place, and Jia Li was not surprised when he pushed a picture. Lorna was coldly alone. She helped her draw while she moved a small bench and ate snacks happily while looking at Ishin's 3 uses. In addition to improving her spirit and ability, the important thing is that her salary will be increased. Phew. Eyes, you know that Jiali does not have much patience to paint. Of course, Lorna can't be like Jiali to make a clone of painting by acting like a baby. She is her job, but she is actually afraid that Shu Mo will quit painting. Now she is practicing like she. Because now it seems that the doppelganger is much easier to use than her, and there is no need to pay, but it may be because of the abnormality in the morning. I was a little guilty about the things I considered when I killed Jin, and I haven't mentioned it now. Shu Mo didn't mention. How could Lorna take the initiative to leave? Infiltrate the building to escape the scope of the probe for assassination. Strangely speaking, Shu Mo really lived a slightly plain life without the gang's interruption. It is the influence of the gang leader who died, but his men did not die. The Frank building incident attracted the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D., so the clone was changed to a Flash, and everyone received the wind more or less, and all began to have their own abacus, and the underworld empire blinked. The effect is surprisingly good. Shu Mo does not know how to separate. And S.H.I.E.L.D. was stunned throughout the entire process. The street probe was still damaged and nothing was found. However, Jin Bin Dai Jin and its agents all over the world did not call the police at all in the 3-day-old man. Those of them were gangsters, and they fell apart. It is impossible to ask the police to find out who killed the boss, and it is never the best to find out. However, Jin Bin's death stubbornly caused the news to lag when the first gang tried their best to conceal it. In the information database of S.H.I.E.L.D., when Collison wanted to act and suspect that it was related to previous events, he would go on dates from time to time to increase the relationship. After a week without any disturbance, the intelligence capabilities of S.H.I.E.L.D. were not good. It is that the gangs are not paid much attention to, and the Black is a new issue of the comic magazine. And tonight is another night of his lottery. Just like that, when Shu Mo, Tenten paddling and Gwen standing on the balcony, Shu Mo looked at the brightly lit New York night scene, feeling extremely happy. Calling out the system interface, the fan value has skyrocketed in just 1 week. The One Punch Man, Tokyo Ghoul, Attack on Giant, Naruto, Shinigami, and Terminator, and Duo, by Zian Mank on the Boy Jump. There are a total of 7 comics in A Dream. Among them, the fan value provided by the first 3 comics has gradually become scarce, and the base number will not increase so much. The fan value provided by the 4 new comics is astonishing, and the 7 books combined have reached more than 5.5 million this week. The fan value label is omitted even with Arabic numerals, and the abbreviated Chinese 583,625 o'clock is used instead. This is not the limit. Even if there are no new comics in the next week, the fan value will have to be doubled, because the next week has actually come to the next month. The time he traveled was not number 1. At the beginning of each month, the fan value will be re-provided, and the base number is as large as the number, and then the fan value that blows out will be credited to the account. Besides, a new comic will be released next week. Thinking of this, Shu Mo can no longer express his inner excitement in words. System. Adjust the specifications, 1.5 million at a time, 1 million at a time, and then. Shu Mo said while thinking, secretly saying, 5.5 million is really amazing, you have to plan carefully. He has directly excluded a lottery of 200,000 points. A minimum of 300,000 is something, and in the first draw, the system said, Fragment is a low-level award, which means that high consumption of fan points will not draw fragments, that is, direct and complete skills. But this is not to say that 5 million at a time is good. After all, it is a lottery, not an exchange of equal value, and it is not a clear price tag for the product. Forehead protector was included in the last million draw. The jackpot is not 100%, and he can't bet all of it, and he will lose a bit if he loses a little. Shu Mo is well aware of the urinary nature of this game, his eyes are shining, and he is fierce and said, it was done before, and readjusted. The system panel is instantly cleared, waiting for a new command. He slowly said, 2 million at a time, 1.5 million at a time, and 1 million at a time. This is directly 4.5 million, a total of 5.5 million, and only 1 million is left after deduction. Shu Mo was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, this high consumption is really a loss. The remaining 700,000 yuan at a time, and 300,000 yuan at a time. As soon as the voice fell, the system interface directly adjusted the specifications. Please host to start the lottery, the order is from low consumption to high consumption. Start. Start. The pitch-black turntable was spinning, and the pointer didn't know what it was pointing at. The first is the 300,000 lottery. Congratulations to host, get Naruto's worn-out clothes, skill, Lingzi paving the way. The beige clothes, with Uzumaki's red pattern on the back, looked a little worn out. Shu Mo took out the plastic bag and put it in. Now every time a lottery draws, plastic bags are prepared to hold some useless things. The second one made him shine. Paving the way for the spirit child. The air fighting technique from Shinigami gathers countless spirit children in the atmosphere under the feet, using this as a foothold and then extending the formation. Note. All worlds with souls have souls. This is just comparable to flight. Shu Mo raised his brows with joy. Although there are useless clothes for the 300,000 lottery, he can make money just by paving the way. And this is not a fragment, or that this is a basic skill at all. Without Shu Mo's reminder, a white light burst into his mind and a message emerged. Just do it as he wanted, just like instinct. Shu Mo just stepped on it gently, and the surrounding spirits seemed to be pulled and gathered under his feet. Shu Mo stepped on the floor half a meter high in midair as if walking on the ground. He walked a few steps forward, and the Lingzi that could not be seen by the naked eye scrambled to spread the slab, and it felt very solid. He dashed in the air, tried the S-type, and then the B-type road again, without any obstacles at all. After practicing for a while, the feeling of landing again is different. Continue. This time it is a 700,000 draw. Congratulations to the host, for obtaining Hebao Fragments X1, Jinmu Research Fragments X3, Saitama Fragments X2, Transformation Technique, and Crystal Ball. The automata detects the item that can be synthesized, and it is being synthesized. 2 beams of light flew out of the warehouse, and there were 2 lumps of meat faintly, and a stream of light was also shot from the turntable, colliding together, and then dazzling colorful flashes. A bean-sized ball appeared in front of Shu Mo's eyes, shaking himself as if he were alive. It looked much better than the fragmented state before, but Shu Mo didn't want to eat it. He doesn't want to eat human flesh, he hasn't finished eating the world's delicacies. The transformation technique was so obvious, Shu Mo put it on without saying a word, and after a poof, she became Lorna. After Shu Mo lifted the transformation technique with a face full of excitement, he dragged the fragments into the warehouse, and he was taken aback by the message that the last crystal ball popped up. Crystal ball. From Naruto, used with the telescope technique, it is usually an ordinary crystal ball. The telescope technique, isn't it what third Hokage uses for daily peeping? Shu Mo scratched his head and put it in the warehouse. It seemed a bit useful, depending on the scope. Whether to continue the lottery, the next amount is 1 million lottery. Yes. The turntable continued to rotate, and the pointers didn't know what they were pointing at, and it was completely dark. Shu Mo whispered secretly. This looks like a good commercial fraud. Congratulations to host. Get the Book of Sealing, Uzumaki Naruto Shard X1, Saitama Shard X2, Mikasa Shard X2, and an animal transformed into a biscuit. The turntable ejected a few white lights. Shu Mo still put the fragments into the warehouse first, layer by layer. Animals turned into biscuits. After eating animal pie, they will become the appearance of this kind of animal, and the duration is 5 minutes. Shu Mo looked at the black technology rabbit-shaped biscuit from Doraemon, shook his head and put it in the warehouse. This kind of biscuit doesn't actually turn into an animal, it's roughly in human form, and it's almost like an orc. There is no practical use, and it's a bit of a prank to be used. Shu Mo focused his attention on the last award, which alone is worth 1 million points. Sealed book. The Book of Ninjutsu written by Naruto in the past was sealed due to the high risk. With the Book of Seal, the collected ninjutsu fragments can be directly converted into skills. Multiple shadow clone fragments are detected and directly strengthened. After the enhancement is completed, it will be upgraded to the full version of multi-shadow clone. LV5 in the upper right corner of the shadow clone icon in the system interface disappears directly, and the afterimages of the 3 people in the pattern become crowded. The system has grasped the root of the grass, which means that it can't be learned directly. Shu Mo's expression on his face was full of joy, and he suddenly became angry. He was not happy. Shadow clone is no longer a fragment. In his opinion, it should be learned by 1 click. I also planned to learn directly from Flying Thor and 8 Inner Gates, but I didn't expect it to be an enhanced version of the converter. Yes, host, the Book of Seal is only an item, unless you have chakra you can learn by yourself. Transformation technique and shadow clone do not use chakra, they consume energy, and he doesn't have chakra at all. When Shu Mo turned black, he stuffed the sealed book into the warehouse. Although he couldn't learn it directly, the fragments can directly transform skills in the future, which is not a loss. Compared with the last 1 million lottery draw, the number is much smaller, and there are only a few fragments. It seems that the value of the same lottery draw will not be equal each time. Continue. 1.5 million lottery. Congratulations to the host. Skynet Fragment X1, Kurosaki Ichigo Fragment X3, Normal Virtual 1, Uzumaki Naruto Fragment X3, Recovery Flashlight, Ashura Unicorn Skill, Tough Fragment X2. Automatically detect the synthesizable item, synthesizing. The 3 Skynet fragments collided together, emitting a dazzling and distinctive black light, turning into a USB flash drive. The 3 Skynet fragments collided together, emitting a dazzling and distinctive black light, turning into a USB flash drive. Skynet. Super artificial intelligence, self-awareness, the internet is life. Shu Mo's face changed slightly, and he picked up the USB flash drive and looked at it. It looked the same as a normal USB flash drive, but in fact there was a big killer inside. An artificial intelligence that once destroyed the world. There is no rush to plug in the computer port for a while, put it on the table first, and focus on a flashlight. Recovered flashlight. It will be restored to its original state if it is exposed to the damaged industrial product, and it will return to the raw material state if it is not damaged. Industrial products. Shu Mo thought for a while. It seemed to be very useful. For example, Tony's steel suit was restored as soon as it was damaged. It can also be used for decomposition, and I don't know if Wolverine's claws are industrial products, and can remove the Edmund alloy on it. The tough shards overlap and upgrade to level 4, and the physical strength and defense it brings is like a soaring feeling. Shu Mo looked at the last award, nothing showed but a ball of light. Without his response, he couldn't show the original shape. This imaginary head appeared in Shinigami's first episode. The strength is very ordinary, but the body is tall and strong, with the characteristics of the spirit body. It is a good fighter. In the final 2 million draw, Shu Mo became nervous. Congratulations to host, you have obtained Uzumaki Naruto Fragments X2, Kurosaki Fragments X3, Hebao 2 pieces, Yano's Thrusters, Doraemon Fragments X4, Animal Biscuit Bear Shape, Vaccine Man Skill, Regeneration. Shu Mo smiled with joy. Except for the character fragments, they are all full versions. The $2 million draw looks a bit small, but it is the essence. The appearance of the propeller is very sci-fi. It looks like a small cone-shaped missile. It is 4-packed and equipped with machinery. With a high-energy core, it can emit flames. The mark level of regeneration skills disappears, and the green cross pattern turns into grass-green leaves, which looks more beautiful. After Shu Mo sorted out the fragments, skills and items, only the worn-out clothes needed to be thrown away. He took out the Skynet U-disc and was about to plug it into the computer port. Rumble. A violent shaking sensation suddenly hit, and the surface began to tremble. Shu Mo immediately put away the U-disc and flew out of the balcony. Looking around, the brightly lit buildings kept extinguishing the lights, and Manhattan was plunged into darkness within a moment. Earthquake. A few days ago, there was a small shaking in the middle of the night, and the earthquake level was very low. Now it is directly a large-scale earthquake. Bang. The gloomy night sky rose with a golden light soaring into the sky. The bright light exploded in the sky, and the energy fluctuations Shu Mo could feel clearly from far away. Shoo. Several sharp sounds of breaking through the sky sounded not far away, and several ninjas in red were chasing a man in a black t-shirt, covered in blood. It's trouble again. Shu Mo couldn't help but stroke his forehead, and sighed helplessly when he saw this man running in his direction. It's so good to be a cartoonist. How come you always come here for things? Worthy of being Marvel Universe, daily disasters come from the sky. The Punisher knew that there was no time to be with his Punisher. He ran under the eaves of the building, trying to use the familiar terrain of the Hell's Kitchen in the alleys. No, retreat is not the ninja of the dilemma. But these ninjas couldn't get rid of the sticky plaster. They went to Queens and found the local Spider-Man to help them stop the conspiracy. We have to find a helper if we consume it. Because the formed team was so shaken that the mountains shook, the golden light behind it exploded, and bright energy particles spilled into the night sky. The mood of the Punisher. He wanted to pass the Brook Bridge tightly, knowing that it was too late. This was their signal to prepare for the attackers' Union base, and it was urgent. Just about to turn around and go back to meet the enemy. At this moment, on the roof for a while, he said in a low voice. At that moment, the Punisher's light glanced at a balcony and secretly said, "That's the cartoonist who killed the bull's eye." He changed my name decisively. Wearing his pajamas, he rushed towards Shu Mo, who was watching, and the ninja behind also led him. Soon, the Punisher rushed to Shu Mo, and the stranger had never seen him and ran to ask for help. Behind him was a group of fierce spirits. "Shu Mo, we need your help." "I refuse, and how do you know that Shaw meant exactly the same?" "Who will agree? You killed the bullseye," and Shu Mo shook his head and waved Kaido decisively. "A clue, I found it myself. I know you will refuse, so I tell you that the ninjas who are digging the ruins of ancient Kunlun under Manhattan look like Frank, but the truth is." As soon as the voice fell, Shu Mo couldn't help but chuckle. "Kunlun. This is New York. Kun Moxia showed me that several ninjas were close at hand. How could the remains of the face be here? Is there still a dragon frame? The foundation that sounds like an incomparably unconventional agreement will be affected. Then the city will sink, and the deaths and injuries are not real. The previous night and the earthquake were all done together." The Punisher turned his head. Shu Mo's strength was amazing. He killed the bullseye with just one hit. Undoubtedly, he was stronger than the two of them, and said anxiously, "Once it succeeds, the odds of winning will be greatly improved for the entire Manhattan and even New Zealanders." Then Wait, you said the city will sink? Number. Daredevil Matt once exclaimed that Shu Mo was planning to refuse again, but there was something wrong in the back, and you were joking. How could the city collapse? There are a lot of superheroes. If the 3 white light spheres have not started, how can they be like the end of the world? It's true, I can't help it if I don't believe it. The Punisher exploded. After turning around and looking back to meet the enemy, the ninjas were already 2 steps away behind him, and the situation was not optimistic. After turning around and looking back to meet the enemy, the ninjas were already 2 steps away behind him, and the situation was not optimistic. At this time, the Punisher slammed out and past him, smashing into the ninja squad like lightning, with a bang, like a high explosive bomb. The white wave ball is already at the 3rd level, and the speed is no longer normal. People can catch it for an instant, and just now, the ninja with its teeth and claws was blown into residue. The person didn't expect it at all. He looked back at Gailey and Lorna at the bedroom door. After the earthquake, the two ran in circles, so fast. Shu Mo didn't say so. Shu Mo opened his mouth and said, "Shogia, I'll go to lie down." Lorna said without thinking, "I'll go too, I can help you." When it arrived, plus the sudden incident, she was relieved. Lorna has stopped showing Shu Mo's face recently, but has softened more, as if she has stopped mentioning the original things. Coming in and staring at Lorna deeply, Shu Mo shook Shu Mo secretly, and Shu Mo didn't expect Lorna to say that. The three of them all looked over, and Lorna felt a little too excited. I don't know how to solve Lorna and watched again. Looking at Shu Mo, he raised his little thumb and muttered, "There is this." Lorna gave a white glance, and the iron basin that controlled the water flew out to wash the eaves with water first, then turned and the Punisher moved forward. Gialli looked at the metal mop and dragged it on. Magneto didn't know if he had a myocardial infarction after seeing this scene. My little thumb moved beautifully while speaking. On the way, you. The Punisher hesitated and was about to ask, but was interrupted by Shu Mo. I'm not a righteous policeman, nor a hero, and at the same time I am not interested in dealing with Kunlun. I just want to let the New Yorkers of tomorrow see my cartoons. Shu Mo interrupted with an ugly expression. As soon as the Punisher's foundation was destroyed and Manhattan was deeply affected and forced to sink, then he frowned and he could tell that it was true. Is it because of profits that he attaches so much importance to comics? Shu Mo can't say that the truck will fall into the bottomless crack before it reaches the bookstore. What's more, it will be broken, but what is annoyed is that someone broke his fan value into the account. Who is still in the mood to read comics in the ruins? His fanfare is dead, and the fan value is a little less. Wouldn't the Deadly comics be released tomorrow? Only 10,000 points less. How much should I lose by then? Who pays? Since the joint will cut his money, don't blame him for taking a large part of the sink, and the living people can support it. Raised a butcher knife, cut it off. Under the ground of a tall building in Midtown Manhattan. The floor area is slightly smaller. The elevator located in the center made a click sound at this time. The elevator opened, and the five-fingered leader of the Hands-on Association walked out. At the same time, ropes fell around the elevator, and countless armies slid down the ropes. The alliance of defenders formed by Daredevil Matt and Iron Fist Danny Rand has been standing up for a long time and directly confronted his army. The first to walk out of the elevator was the leader Alexandra, a tall European woman, followed by Chinese, Japanese, Latin and black people. Mrs. Gao, the person in charge of the Celestial Division, looks old-fashioned but in fact the strongest. Murakami, in charge of the Donggying branch, is good at various assassinations in Donggying. Botu, the person in charge of the Americas, uses the Toyo katana. Suwanda, in charge of Africa, is a black man. They are the leadership of Shohehui, 5 Fingers. 5 people defected from Kunlun in the Celestial Dynasty with the Keelbones and used the powerful life energy in the Keelbones to survive to this day. In fact, the 5 people are all hundreds of years old and immortal. But the Keelbones will dry up one day, and after they frantically searched, they found that another Keelbone under Manhattan was sealed by Kunlun. In the past few days, the Shohehui used all methods to open the seal but failed. Today, the Shohehui decided to use high-energy explosive bombs to directly blast through the foundation and break it with brute force. Daredevil and others came to stop in time, and at the same time formed a team to protect the safety of Manhattan. There are not many members of the League of Defenders. The leader is Danny Rand, who has just returned to New York, and is now a disciple of Kunlun. He has been dubbed Iron Fist, and his girlfriend Colleen is next to him. Daredevil, who is active in Hell's Kitchen, finds 2 helpers, a couple, Detective Jessica and Black Luke, both of whom are powerful superpowers. There were also Punishers who went out to rescue soldiers. Daredevil's face was very bad at this time. They didn't expect that there would be so many ninjas hiding in this building. With so many foreign armed forces infiltrating in, what are the relevant departments doing? Daredevil complained secretly about a certain black chief. He had been monitoring them very vigorously on weekdays, and now he didn't even have a personal shadow. Danny, it seems that you are a new generation of Iron Fist. It just happens that the seal needs Iron Fist to open. Alexandra took a few steps forward, looking at them, and finally said to Danny. Iron Fist Danny said angrily, "Stop talking nonsense, you have the ability to get it, you traitors." As soon as the voice fell, he lit up from the inside out, and his golden light was shining in his fist, and the whole person rushed out quickly. As soon as the voice fell, he lit up from the inside out, and his golden light was shining in his fist, and the whole person rushed out quickly. Danny's actions were like a fuse, Daredevil and others followed closely, and the ninja army was even more pressured. For a time, the sword and shadow, hidden weapons burst out, and a group of melee. Luke and Jessica have a big advantage in the face of cold weapons with their super strength and resistance. Danny even smashed them with golden fists. Daredevil played with double sticks with superb fighting skills. The League of Defenders entered the Tigers and came out of the cage for a short time, and it was impossible for them to survive. But they were not complacent, knowing that these ninjas in the inner and outer layers were like a pack of wolves staring at them. Constantly throwing out cannon fodder to consume their physical strength, as long as there is a trace of fatigue, they will be torn apart. In just a moment, without touching the 5 fingers, the defenders began to exhaust their strength. At this time, the ninja army was getting faster and faster, and the tiger was already at a disadvantage. Outside the building, the dark night obscured nature, and the voice of "ha-ha" was raised gently. "Natasha, how is the situation?" A question came from Natasha's headset in Black Widow. "I am here to act anytime, Coulson, start preparing." Wearing a black tights, wavy red curly hair, and flaming red lips, Natasha gestured to the agents behind him a few times. As the largest official supernatural response agency, it began in-depth investigations as early as after the first small earthquake. The incidents that Collison investigated were all focused on Manhattan, where the source of the earthquake was enough to attract S.H.I.E.L.D.'s attention. Mantis catches the cicadas, and the Oriole is waiting for the opportunity in the S.H.I.E.L.D. bureau behind, using the mini-camera to control the overall situation, resolutely taking action when the League of Defenders is about to lose. "Oh, shit, don't do anything. An unknown flight object is approaching." When Coulson was about to answer the call, his eyes widened and he hurriedly called out to the sky. "What's the matter, Coulson?" Natasha didn't doubt that he had him, and asked the agents behind to suspend the action. "Heaven." When Natasha heard the words, she raised her head and looked at the night sky. The sound of buzzing was exploded in layers of air, and a figure passed over her head less than 20 meters away. With very good eyesight and professional equipment, Hawkeye spoke to the communicator on a branch not far away and said, "White kimono, short brown hair and black-rimmed glasses. He can fly, and I didn't find any thruster device at all." Natasha answered, and then said to Collison after a pause, "Notify the chief." "Who is he? Mutant, or superpower?" Rumble. When the five-finger winning ticket was in hand, the bottom of the ground suddenly began to shake violently, and the startled sand particles continued to fall from above, and the dull roar echoed in the entire underground space. The ninja army that was besieging Daredevil and others couldn't help but stop. Everyone heard the reputation. This is the underground, and if the upper part collapses, no one can escape. Boom. The mud slab at the bottom of the elevator collapsed directly, and the crashed gravel fell rapidly, and the five fingers flew away for the first time, and several ninjas who did not respond in time were directly smashed into blood plasma. The defenders secretly cursed for not being killed directly, and fortunately it was only a little collapse. At this moment, a figure appeared at the entrance of the collapsed cave, gently floating down and slowly landing. "Who are you?" Alexandra asked quietly. "Aizen Sosuke." His voice is very flat, and it makes people feel that this person is just chatting. He is extremely calm and completely ignores the surrounding ninja army like nothing. Alexandra could even notice that her brown eyes did not fluctuate at all. Shu Mo stared at the ninjas around him and the Daredevil and others who had met once, with an unmoving expression. The way he looks now is just to hide his eyes. The transformation technique is exactly the same. Of course, genes can't be changed, just the appearance and clothes. He took all factors into consideration when he set out. He went out so swaggeringly that he would come to the door if he could not be troubled. Currently his comics need to be released on the market and cannot appear in front of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau. In order not to reveal his true identity, Shu Mo used transformation technique to become someone who had never existed before. Only one episode of Shinigami has been released now, and it will be serialized in 5 episodes tomorrow. Aizen will not appear until 2 months before it appears. When? Sure enough, Flight approached and found a group of people behind a wavy red-haired woman. S.H.I.E.L.D. had already arrived on the scene. Daredevil was happy, and his super senses told him through various hidden messages that the name Aizen Sosuke was a pseudonym, and his appearance had changed. In fact, he was the cartoonist he saw last time. But he didn't say anything. Shu Mo was obviously here to help them. It seems that the Punisher brought it. Donggying people. Donggying people. Alexandra's eyes condensed, and the vigilant person who came from unknown has revealed extraordinary gestures just now. They all use the elevator to get down with their 5 fingers. The height is not low. Shu Mo ignored Alexandra's question, but walked slowly towards the 5 fingers. The faithful hand-joining ninja is like a ghost in the dark night, with a special footstep that turns into a red wave from all directions. The ninja is holding weapons such as 8-gate, katana, flow hammer or darts. Sen Lang's sharp and direct aim at Shu Mo's vital points, making others fearful. They immediately regarded Shu Mo as their primary enemy, and there were only a few around Daredevil and his party. It doesn't matter whether the dust removed is 1 or 2 or more, it doesn't make any difference to the naked eye. In the face of the wolves' tears, Shu Mo's face didn't change a bit, but rather calmly said with interest. As soon as the voice fell, he rushed up at a speed that the naked eye could not catch, and the moment Shunpo activated it, he was in front of a ninja. His face was shocked and he didn't expect it to be so fast. In the next second, his hand was empty, and the samurai sword was not easy to fly. Then there was a flash of cold light. The whole person lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Afterwards, the cold light continued to appear among the wolves, and the cold reflections jumped between each other. Puff. Shu Mo swung each knife and rolled the air pressure, and the powerful force smashed the victim's body like a mortar, and the pain of the slash spread throughout the whole sound. In the wailing, blood-red limbs fluttered everywhere, slaughtered as clean as hell Shira. In less than a moment, the ninja army of hundreds of people lost a third directly, and the tattered and human-shaped corpses were scattered everywhere, and the pungent bloody smell filled every underground air. The blood gathered together to form a stream. The crimson color was extremely dazzling. Life not commensurate with strength is just a waste. Shu Mo just raised the katana and flicked it aside, splashing out a little bit of blood. 5 fingers stared dignifiedly at the broken corpses on the ground, and the ground filled with blood. After looking at each other, Mrs. Gao said with cold eyes, "It's a bunch of trash. I want me to do it." Although it is not clear where Shu Mo's upper limit is, in their opinion, it is only faster, stronger, and the skill of using a knife is even more ordinary. And their 5 fingers are powerful Kunlun traders, inheriting Kunlun's secret, Qigong, proficient in various martial arts and assassination techniques, and practiced for hundreds of years to integrate all martial arts from the East and the West. All the ninjas seemed to feel guilty and bowed their heads slightly, splitting away. Mrs. Gao acted very swiftly in an old-fashioned manner. She filled her feet with qi, and rushed out like a string of arrows. With a slight white light in her hands, she patted Shu Mo's face. Snapped. A crisp and resounding slap, echoing underground. After Mrs. Gao only felt the severe pain, she was in a trance in the eyes of everyone, like a whipped top spinning at a high speed and hitting several ninjas before she could stop. Vomit. Mrs. Gao's eyes were dizzy, she spit out several teeth under intense dizziness, and a flushed slap was printed on her side. The pupils of the other 4 fingers shrank suddenly into a black spot, and he looked at Shu Mo with a green expression. Only then did they realize that the man in front of him had not got a trace of blood on his body from beginning to end. They could see the trajectory of the figure when they were slaughtering the ninjas before, but they didn't see anything just now. You must know that the Qigong of the high-strength lady is the strongest in the 5 fingers, even she is confused, which has shown that they have greatly underestimated this man. And the daredevil and others on the side saw this scene and took a breath, which was so fast. Alexandra said in a low voice, "Let's go together, he is only one person." The 3 nodded their heads, and went up together and surrounded them separately. Mrs. Gao also gradually realized that her strength was not as simple as she thought. Facing the 5 people surrounded by Shu Mo, there was still some distance from Shu Mo, but he looked at the flaws carefully and surged forward without impulsiveness. Why keep the distance? If you want to hit me reliably, you should approach me and attack, or is it possible that when you are afraid of approaching me, any part of my figure may disappear out of your sight? In Shu Mo's opinion, this was a joke, and the 5 people sneered and sneered. If this is the case, it is just an unnecessary annoyance. The fighting distance will be meaningful, and it will only be limited when the opponent's strength is equal. Therefore, the fighting distance between me and you does not carry any meaning. As soon as the voice fell, Shu Mo appeared in front of the 5 people in an instant. Like an avatar, the afterimages appeared at the same time. At the same time, they suddenly swung down at an incomparable speed, and the powerful force instantly split the 5 fingers in half. As soon as the voice fell, Shu Mo appeared in front of the 5 people in an instant. Like an avatar, the afterimages appeared at the same time. At the same time, they suddenly swung down at an incomparable speed, and the powerful force instantly split the 5 fingers in half. The 5 fingers turned round and the eyes were round, and they wanted to make a sound in their throats, but they couldn't do anything when they were already cold. Following the long and narrow bloodline, the 5 fingers felt nothing at all, but the silver light passed away, and the late pain let them know the disparity between the 2 sides, one after another, the sound of puffs, before and after they fell heavily to the ground. Shu Mo has never put them in his eyes. Even not showing up in the movie is a gimmick. Superpower doesn't even want to destroy the foundation of Manhattan, so that no one can read his comics. It was a dream. The ninja army who saw this scene fell into a brief silence, and then all rushed up. They are all dead men. Only when there are 5-fingered hand fusion is called hand fusion, otherwise they will lose the meaning of life. At this moment, the underground ceiling kept sliding down the ropes and groups of people in black. Natasha took the lead in landing. Finger Pistol shouted to everyone, "Don't move." But no one listened to her, and the ninjas with their hands still rushed towards Shu Mo. Their minds of revenge filled their minds and no one could stop them. Fire. Bang bang bang. Shield. Agents raised their guns and fired, and the spitting snakes raged out, but the red ninjas crawled up to Shu Mo even if they fell to the ground despite being shot. After a while, even a ninja on the field didn't even survive to make Natasha frustrated. Hawkeye was behind, frowning, and said, "This man has nothing to do. The guns of the agents are not long-eyed. Except for Daredevil and others on the side, ninjas including Shu Mo are all within the shooting range. Even if they didn't have the idea of aiming at Shu Mo in advance, the stray bullets would still shoot through the ninja." But Shu Mo still stood there calmly, looking at the ugly-looking shield. Agent, the corners of his mouth were slightly curved, and his hands were lifted and released. Wow! With the sound of metal collision, black bullets fell from their hands to the surface and bounced slightly. The sound of crisp ears shocked everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. "Since it's the enemy, then have fun." Shu Mo's brown eyes gleamed, and he waved out. Roar! A loud noise of beast roaring in the underground space echoed in everyone's ears. No creatures appeared, but everyone clearly felt the monsters appear. Roar! Beast's roar caused smoke and dust to fly, and everyone's expressions panicked, and there was nothing that could clearly feel the abnormality. "Stop, we are not the enemy," Natasha hurriedly yelled. She didn't expect the situation to become like this. The chief once said that she shouldn't be an enemy for the time being, but the situation changed so quickly that she caught her off guard. "When your gun is pointed at me, it is already." Shu Mo looked at Natasha, pushed his finger on the black-framed glasses and said indifferently, "You wouldn't say that it was actually a friendly army. It was a misfire. Maybe it was, but it's not now. Come on, my pet." Roar! In Shu Mo's eyes, there was a huge and burly monster on his side, with a cavity in front of him, and a light gray body with a white hard shell mask on his face. There was another roar. Except for some movement from Daredevil, everyone was confused. Daredevil with super senses can feel an unknown monster standing next to Shu Mo through the small changes of roaring wind pressure and ground stepping. But other people seem to be invisible. Is it an invisible monster? What surprised Daredevil was that there was no heartbeat, which was incredible. Daredevil did not make a sound reminder. The appearance of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau now shows that the fisherman has benefited. The most annoying thing about a righteous police like him is S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau. Then I came back. Since this is Shu Mo, how could he have such strength? The cartoonist is not doing his job properly, and is still fighting with S.H.I.E.L.D. Bureau. Natasha, the chief said that support has been sent. What we need is to hold him. Hawkeye squinted his eyes and used high-point equipment to scan various spectrums, but there was no result. Secretly. Not invisible. Now science and technology can detect invisibility and changing colors through X-rays, thermal reactions, etc., but scanning has no results. This shows that such creatures do not have these, or they are shielded. Either way, let them scan the uselessness of the equipment. Yeah. Natasha had no choice but to respond, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents separated and surrounded like the previous hand-to-hand meeting. However, they did not act rashly, and the bullet storms were all taken up empty-handed and they could only rely on heavy weapons to fight against them. Shu began to move, and the click sound made people throb. The keen Hawkeye directly saw the ground slightly collapsed, and hurriedly shouted, "Attack continues to sink into position." Turning around and saying to an agent behind him, "Always pay attention to the source of the sound wave and transmit it to the communicator." Roar. Shu's speed is getting faster and faster, and his heavy body rushes to the surface, raising his hand and making a fist. Bang bang bang. The bullet kept venting towards the void, but it penetrated directly in the next second, without blood splashing as they had imagined. The bullet kept venting towards the void, but it penetrated directly in the next second, without blood splashing as they had imagined. Natasha gritted her teeth and fired the gun, and the result was the same. Did you simply miss it, or penetrate without injury? Buzz. What? The agents were swept away directly, and screamed in pain and slammed into the wall. Die. An agent rushed to the front to set up the rocket. Bang. The shell flew out, and the Stark Industries product was extremely powerful. Boom. The shells passed through the virtual body and hit the wall on one side in Shu Mo's line of sight. The crashing rubble collapsed, and the stone wall was smashed into cobweb-like cracks, spreading in all directions. Impossible, I should hit it. The agent shouted with a dull face, and he was shot and flew out in the next second. Until now, he couldn't understand how it could be missed even if he couldn't see it but was close at hand. Hawkeye's face is pale. Is such a big body really dodged? At this time, the underground ceiling kept shaking off the rubble. The surrounding walls were already covered with cracks, and countless grains of sand fell. No, the shell hit the pillar just now. Retreat. Natasha shouted to the team. Collison, pull us up. S.H.I.E.L.D. is a powerful emergency response agency. It has thought out all measures, and quickly responded and lowered the small lifeboat of the Reunion 2, and the agents hurriedly fled to it. The faces of Daredevil and the others were tense. and now the collapse is undoubtedly buried underneath for no one's life. Just as he was hesitating whether to take a wave, the Punisher waved hello in it. When they saw this, they had to ran over and ran up. Shu Mo put the dummy away and stuffed it into the warehouse. Anyway, he didn't have this kind of dummy consciousness and wouldn't complain. He looked up at the lifeboat that was about to fly out of the ground, stepped gently in the air, and kicked it slightly. The white air waves surged from the hit point and spread out like ripples in the water. Shu Mo's whole body burst out like a cannonball. In an instant, he overtook the lifeboat and then flew out of the ground. Shunpo flashed again and flew out of the building within a few strokes. Natasha and other agents finally let go of the eyes of Shu Mo's back as they watched, and the man who knew how to fly could attack the lifeboat in the air, leaving them all dead without a place to bury them. Rumble. The building began to sink to varying degrees. As soon as the lifeboat fell outside, a dazzling great fireball appeared on the horizon. Hey, did you do it? I'll let Johnny teach you.